Welcome to Reach, your platform to connect with other executive assistants and acquire game-changing knowledge and perspective. Reach is designed to inspire your workday, guide you through pivotal moments in your career, and transform you into the executive assistant you've always wanted to be. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Reach. This is your host, Jessica Van, the founder and CEO of Maven Recruiting Group. And today I am joined by Michelle. Michelle, help me with the last name. Czarnik?
Czarnik.
Czarnik. That was my second guess.
That wasn't bad, though. I've heard every
permutation I can only imagine.
Yeah,
it's the
all of them.
Consonants, two in a row with no vowel that just always messes us up, you know?
Yeah, my own mother and brother still can't spell it, so
I did really good then.
You did really well. Yeah, you did really well.
All right. So welcome, Michelle Czarnik. Delighted to have you here.
Same. Thank you for having me.
So for our listeners, a little bit of context here. As we know, it is pretty rare to find an executive and assistant partnership that stands the test of time, number one, but also that allows the assistant and the executive to co-evolve. And in Michelle's case, really to evolve into something even bigger and greater, where trust and collaboration really support this evolution. So Michelle has lived this journey firsthand, which is what she'll be talking about with us. She worked alongside of her executive for 17 years. And in that time grew from an executive assistant to ultimately co-founding a company with her executive called Box Media IO. So today we'll be sitting with Michelle to talk about what it really takes to build that kind of long-term, high trust partnership and how that foundation of trust can lead to other opportunities and leadership opportunities in particular, and what it was like for her to transform from being an executive assistant to actually being a co-founder. So we'll explore this incredible career path, but also talk a little bit about Michelle's earlier career where she was working in entertainment as Maria Bello's assistant, to her time navigating within the tech world, and now her most recent step, which is going back into estate management. And what is this common thread that ties them all together? Also, for those sports aficionados out there, Michelle is a pro golfer, and we'll also talk to her a little bit about her pro golf background and why she's so passionate in particular about getting women on the course. So that's quite the intro, Michelle. You have a very interesting background.
The intro. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, aren't you interested in hearing yourself talk? Because you're really quite an interesting person.
When someone lays it all out, I'm like, well, I guess I've done a lot of different things.
I guess I am kind of interesting. Yeah, you sure have.
My kids don't think so.
They never do. I'm sure the most embarrassing human that's ever walked the earth, in addition to the least interesting person. Yeah, as am I. I'm the most humiliating person ever. To my children, of course. So 17 years, that's quite a run. Take us back to the beginning, and how did you start with this particular executive, and what was it that made that partnership just click?
In a way, it feels like it was, 25 years ago, and in some moments it feels like it was yesterday. I was in the golf industry at the time. We kind of touched on, I started golfing as a child and played my whole life competitively, and then went into the club pro world. So I wasn't on tour playing or anything, but I was a assistant golf pro at some clubs down in the South Bay in the Palo Alto area, and loved it, but kind of knew there was a stop to like how far I could get in that. And being in my mid 20s, I thought it was time to maybe look somewhere else. So I took some of the skills that I really enjoyed, which was coordination and event planning and the calendaring and managing, and tried to figure something out. And I ended up applying for executive assistant roles. And I was applying for a agency in San Francisco where I did everything I could to probably not get the job. I think I canceled on 2 interviews the day of. My dad was really sick at the time. I'm like, these people are never going to call me back. And later found out after a couple interviews that ended up going really well, and them being open to rescheduling, the amazing woman who I'm still friends with in HR at the time had just lost a parent a few years before me. And she was just, without saying a word, just very understanding and not even asking questions that maybe I had something going on personally. And she kept rescheduling the interviews for me. And I ended up getting the job, and they let me know that the CEO, who is absolutely wonderful and brilliant, had a tough time with PAs and had gone through a few in the last year or so, and to kind of like, if I was up for the challenge. And I'm like, why not? So we ended up clicking fairly early on. I think coming from golf, where it was more hospitality and always like knowing that the member or the golfer or the client was right while I was working behind the counter, also kind of led me into a successful path for being an executive assistant, of letting the principal or the CEO shine, but being the support behind them to be able to do so. Kind of like I always say when I'm training people now, is it's like one of those check the ego at the door jobs. You walk in and you can't have a lot of need for the spotlight, but you have to understand that they're in the spotlight because of the things you do to support them. And if you're okay with like the credits, then it's a really good role for you. And we clicked, and it was not easy at first because it was 2008 when I joined, and 2009 hit real fast, and there was a massive recession and layoffs. And I thought, well, I'm going to be one of the first ones to go, and being one of the newer ones. And they ended up keeping just me and a couple others out of, maybe 40 plus employees. And I kind of asked why. And she said, we work well together. And I kind of need you to keep ticking while I come out of this. And she did. We came out of it, we rebuilt, and over time, that relationship went from like executive assistant to running more operations to VP of operations. And it was really based off of trust, and me allowing her to know what she was really good at, but also creating boundaries around those ideas, because she's so brilliantly great at connecting and strategizing and helping them be realistic.
Grounding her vision, if you will, and kind of enabling it.
Yes, I think it's really easy to take a role like an executive assistant or personal assistant, and we're trained to say yes. I mean, they want to hear the answer yes. That's why they've hired us, so we can do things. But those yeses have to be within a boundary of like, is it actually possible to execute? And I think as you become more confident in your role and your relationship with your principal becomes stronger trust-wise on both sides, you can allow it to kind of push back and say, hey, you have this amazing idea or goal that you want done, yesterday, but here's the realistic time frame, boundaries around it, and allow them to be more successful rather than running with these ideas and kind of this ping-ponging of things that never get completed because you just keep saying yes to things rather than creating like actual processes around them.
Yeah, and guardrails, So you mentioned trust a couple of times, and obviously trust, as you said, and as we know, is really paramount, because without it, I would argue there's really no possible future to expand in your role, because it really is what foregrounds that opportunity and that relationship. So when you reflect back on that time, and I realize this is, a little bit in the past, but as you reflect back on that time, are there any key moments that really stand out, whether they were key moments or turning points that you encountered with this executive where you really knew that trust had deepened, like whether it was a situation you navigated for them or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, I think there were a few over the years. And one kind of early on was a little bit after this, the economy was taking a turn. I mentioned in 2009, the recession was hitting. She was going into kind of fight or flight mode of how to survive and keep things moving, which all CEOs and business owners are doing in a period like that. She had gone to a TED conference and she had met some people at the TED conference and made these great connections and said, hey, I think I'm going to fly to New York. There's some business opportunities there. I feel like I can turn this around. And we're based out of San Francisco at the time. And she goes, I just need you to trust me that I'm making the right choice and like get everybody on the ground to support this and let me kind of build this out. And I did, no questions asked, like just supported the whole idea, got the team on board and I think at that pivotal time of like make or break, the support I leaned in to give her during that and allowed her to just go there and build these connections that she had met at TED, and have some business opportunities that ended up working out. And actually within about 3 to 6 months from then, she ended up moving to New York to
Wow.
continue on to some of these business opportunities that arise. But I think showing her that I supported her decision and saw how much she had taken the company to where we were, and even through this tough time that she was going to push it over the line and get us back to the other side, and that I trusted her fully, allowed her to see me in a different way. And I think our relationship grew exponentially after that point in time.
And how did you do that exactly? I mean, when she said, "Hey, Michelle, get everybody to be on board," how did you do that?
I reminded everyone of kind of how the business was where it was, is like all of us were team members that executed on different levels and provided this value. But our CEO was really the brains and the strategy behind it. And we were where we were with the clients and the business, and a lot of the actual strategy behind our projects were from her. And if we couldn't trust the vision that she was seeing and the opportunity she had at hand, that we probably didn't have a chance to get through this big hurdle that we were facing with like the economy and the recession and everything that was taking place. And I think that kind of did allow everyone, instead of seeing it, I think her fear was people thinking she was running away from what was happening, but she really wasn't. She was actually putting everything on the line and putting even a larger risk by trying something completely out of our box to open up new doors. And that's exactly what she did. And it worked, and it saved us. And we actually ended up growing and becoming double the size over the next 12 months from that time. And I think when she saw that my loyalty stayed to her, I continued to support the staff. That was when my role started to change a little bit more into VP of operations. I started overseeing a few more staff members, and, just helping her keep a culture within the different work environments, both here in the Bay Area and in New York, aligned.
So you're a good cheerleader, Michelle.
I try to be. I try.
You are. I mean, that's really the essence of it, is, hey, like, we all signed on to be a part of this for a reason. She was the vision. We trusted her vision then. We need to trust her vision again. Yeah. That's really...
And I have for 17 years. She's an incredible human. Just generous and loving, and we've kind of had this joke over 17 years, because obviously a lot of different staff members have come and gone in 17 years. It's not common for someone to stay in an organization that long, like you first mentioned. And so we've had everything from assistants to project managers and design teams and creative and legal, and all of them come and go. But everyone has always seen that, she and I were sisters, we're best friends, we're mother-daughter, and that role flip-flops, who's being the mom, who's being the daughter. We're like a married couple where, we laugh, we joke, we want to kill each other at times, but all that has balanced out to be this really amazing partnership of trust and wanting the other person to succeed in their role, and allowing them to, by knowing that their skill set's what benefits the other.
Yeah. I love that. So you didn't just support your executives, we talked about in the intro. You grew with her, and you went through this massive evolution from executive assistant to, you mentioned, VP of operations, to chief of staff, to co-founder. So what did that look like, and how did those, sort of phases emerge? And at the same time, how did you set yourself up to be able to transition successfully into all of those different hats?
I think from executive assistant to VP of operations, that was fairly seamless. It was just the responsibilities kind of increased. Instead of just supporting her as the C-level executive, I was also kind of overseeing parts of the operations, getting a little bit more involved in maybe invoicing and finances, and kind of digging deeper into different aspects of how to run the business. Then when moving into the role of, COO, chief of staff type of position as a co-founder. What had happened was she had a new vision of a business that was based off of a mixed media production company, and where she really has always had a passion for learning and making learning accessible for people of all different learning styles. So she has this incredible vision of taking soft skill training and communication intelligence and making it available for, people across the globe, really, but in a corporate setting to just kind of elevate people's internal skills while working in an organization. So with that said, while we were doing that and she was envisioning this company, she had kind of like 4 people that she knew she needed as pillars to make it operate. And it was her being the strategy and the kind of brains behind it, someone who was more research and development and analyzing the data, someone running the creative, and then someone running the operations and working with finance, and then having obviously department leads that all worked underneath that to keep it running. But she felt that her and I had this great trust that would work well for me to kind of take that operations corner. And the 4 of us ended up working together for, I believe Vox Media's turning 7 or so this year, 7 or 8, and it's been an amazing road. I think anyone who's been with a startup from beginning towards, as you ramp up, we had COVID in the middle, we've had all these things kind of come at us, and the 4 of us have stuck together. And my role into chief of staff, they ended up kind of moving a lot of the offices over to London during the COVID period and right before that. And so me staying in the US actually allowed for me to have this really great relationship with the staff. I think sometimes like chief of staff thinks they have to be in everyone's like day to day and minute by minute. And honestly, there's a weird value to me not being on site with them all the time. I would come once or twice a year, check in, but they had this safe space with me. I dedicated a block of time with, each department head every week, checked in, and it was like a safe spot. They knew I wasn't going to be in the office tomorrow. If they told me something going on that was maybe like, hey, we've been, there's been a little conflict in the design team or whatever the reason may be, like I wasn't going to come in and be looking at everyone and go, oh, you don't know what they told me. It all stayed very safe and was monitored from afar. And if anything, the feedback on that was very positive, that I was just able to always kind of have this outsider view while still being on the inside, if that kind of makes sense. So it worked really well. And, stepping back from my role with them has not been like an easy decision after 17 years. It was largely based around the fact that they're growing so much in the UK, and I'm not able to be part of that day-to-day operations and execution on the same level. And that, as I get older and my kids get older, with the time zones and the different things, it's made sense for me to take more of a board advisory role and support them in every which way that I can on that level.
I want to circle back to this theme of trust, which keeps coming up. Would you, in your experience, would you say that having that kind of core trust foundation makes up for any lack of knowledge or lack of kind of experience? So for instance, like trust picks up where knowledge leaves off, right? Like, because one could argue that you hadn't necessarily done some of these things, right?
No.
You haven't.
Many of them.
And yet she obviously, because there was this profound sense that Michelle is my cheerleader, she has my back, she's my ride or die, I know that she will stand by me, that, it's almost like that trust makes up for whatever isn't or wasn't immediately present, which I think is a really interesting thing to just pause and think about for a second, because I think so oftentimes people are fixated on having to have a certain skill or a certain aptitude to be able to do something or qualify for the next step. But if we really double click into your career and we really examine it, I mean, a lot of it, all of these things you've done because somebody believed in you and they were confident in you and they trusted you above all else.
Yes. I mean, to say that I didn't know what I was doing is an understatement on some of the tasks that I was given over the years. But I think, like you said, it comes from when I had some amazing executives that I was working and partners that I was working around. So if you go in with an open mind that you don't need to know everything off the, from the get-go, but you're willing to learn and soak in everybody's skills around you, you can take on anything. I learned very early on, I was a yes. I too took the EA job and was a yes girl. It was like, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. No problem. I'll have that done tomorrow. And I very quickly realized that for a very busy executive, one of the biggest issues ever is when someone, support staff or really anyone on their team tells them they can do something and either they can't because they're too slammed and busy, they don't have the resources, they actually don't have the answer, and they don't know where to go to get the answer. And it took me a while to learn that one of the best things I could do for her and for anyone on the team was to say, hey, I absolutely want to take this on, but I'm going to need a little more direction, a little more clarification, maybe some point me in the right direction of where I might be able to find some of this information, or I haven't actually done this particular type of task before. So I'm going to have to lean in and talk to so-and-so in accounting and get a little more details so that I could see if this is something I could add to my plate. And I wish I would have explained to myself maybe a few years earlier that that is actually a better answer than just, yes, I can do it, because that also then loses some of that trust when you keep saying that. And if you can't do it. So not that I was doing that often, but I think just as we get older and we realize that it's okay not to have the answer every time, it's how you approach finding the answer or using resources to then get it. I've also always been one open to learning from others, taking advice, constructive criticism, feedback, suggestions. And again, that also I think comes with time. It's a little bit hard at first at new jobs and all those things you want to prove to yourself and everyone around you. But the more open I became with that, it also, going back to the trust thing, it just increased that level and tolerance of what can be given to Michelle to do more of, because we're confident now that even if she doesn't know what she's doing, she's going to figure it out. And I think once we had that understanding, like you said, it becomes easier to kind of hand over tasks that, like you said, I didn't have the skill set necessarily to do or going into it.
I think that's a really powerful insight. And I hope our listeners are really listening hard on that one, because I think that the willingness to acknowledge and how you acknowledge sort of the limitations, but also at the same time, your eagerness to make that jump and to take that on, but also acknowledging, this is where I might need some support or direction or guidance. Mm-hmm. I think that demonstration of humility is really super powerful and gets you a lot farther than overpromising and underdelivering in your capabilities. As a co-founder, what were some of the things that kind of surprised you? I mean, did you feel at certain times out of your element? And what were some of the biggest differences that you encountered as you made that leap into that role?
I think, and I'm guessing anyone who has started a small business and has gone through the stages of self-funding to, going through rounds of funding and building your own business, the first thing that is, that comes with it is the stress of the responsibility. It is very different being an employee and an employer. Not necessarily talking about your tasks at work for the day, whether you're the employee or the employer, you still need to get done what you have to get done that day, but the weight that it holds of the execution and the clients coming through and all those back end details, so that, payroll and insurance and all your bills are paid each month. And when
taxes, I'd just like to add taxes.
And filing, and are we applying for the right grants and credits, and have we done this, and are there other programs that support this? And it's like all these things that are coming at you. And when you're an employee of a great team and all these things are happening around you, that's amazing. But then when you are a co-founder or a business owner of it, and you're the one implementing the reason why these things are coming together, and oh gosh, now everyone's kind of doing these new benefits to keep their employees and retainability longer, and they're offering this and that, and you've got to keep up, because otherwise your employees are just going to look at the next place, and you're trying to figure out all these things while still executing to do your work. Mm-hmm. I think that's where I noticed, like, in terms of responsibility and the stresses that come with it. But to equal that out, the reward is higher. Mm-hmm. So when you do cross that finish line and you have these huge projects, or you close those huge deals with these clients that you once dreamed of, and then it comes true, like, that's a piece that you get to come home and think as an employee, like, oh wow, we just got this really exciting new client, and that's so cool working for them. But as a co-founder, and you have that day and that night that you just closed this, it's like, wow, we did it. Like, we took this idea and this small group of 4 and we did it. And like, that's huge. And that makes the nights of worry and the small business ups and downs kind of all make sense when you have those moments of celebration, because they become really personal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm feeling like, and I know we're going to talk about that, we're going to get to it, but I feel like there's this through line in the fact that you came to this career vis-a-vis your past as a professional athlete, and then did the EA support, chief of staff, all of that, and then went into being a founder. I feel like there's a through line in this idea of chipping away at something, and this idea of manifestation, and really like setting your mind to something and really applying yourself to that goal. And like, when you think about like, what is the journey of a professional athlete? It's like, oh, this aspirational idea, hope, goal, dream, whatever, of like being that person. And then, but there's, if you think about it, like, there's, the path to that is pretty
grueling.
It's grueling. Yeah. And it's not a given. And it's a lot of just like application, putting it out there, applying yourself. And it's a somewhat nebulous, like, is this going to come to fruition? I don't know. I mean, maybe, like, right? Like, it's not a guarantee. It's not like, I don't know, like when you go to school and you say, I'm going to get a 4-year degree. Okay. Like, get your 4-year degree, pass the classes, attend class, do the work, pass the test. Right. You will achieve this. But it's not quite the same when you're going for something that's, you might do A, B, and still not get to C, Right.
I mean, on the athlete side of it, I mean, that's exactly it. I started playing golf at 6 years old, and by 9 or 10 years old, I was probably practicing 5-6 days a week. There were workout routines. My whole entire summers were dedicated to traveling around the state, playing in tournaments. I missed birthday parties and family vacations and all these things for this goal of what would be or could be. And so, like you said, you can put everything into it with the aspiration of this is what's going to be the outcome. But in the end, my outcome actually wasn't what I was putting in all that time for. In my head, I was, going on tour and playing and winning all these tournaments, and that didn't happen. I was good, but there's a really big difference of being good and being so good that you are a tour player that's going to make cuts. It's not a glamorous life if you're out there just trying to make a cut every weekend and you're not making it. So I ended up turning it into a career rather than, being on a circuit or something. And it was hard on me. I mean, I actually stopped playing for about a year fully because I felt like I failed. It was like, 15 years of practice and work and all the sacrifices and all the tears and literal tears of just being a teenager and being like, why am I missing out on all these things to do this? But I look back now and think, yes, it was, was a little intense, maybe a little over the top. Absolutely. Did it get me to like that goal that I had in my mind as a little girl up? No, but it actually did. It was just a different goal that maybe I didn't know existed at the time. It gave me this amazing career for about 7 or 8 years in the golf industry. I met incredible people, incredibly successful people. I think the people that I was surrounded by at some of these country clubs, like down in the peninsula, actually is what pushed me to want to be more business focused and get into, some of these more executive settings. And so I'm beyond grateful for all of that. And golf has maintained to be a staple in my life all the way through. I think, every time someone hears that you play golf, it's like, oh, let's do business out there. It's like this open-ended excuse. And then, like you mentioned earlier, I have a huge passion around just women feeling comfortable on the golf course and not missing out on the events that they could be having a good time in or playing in because they just don't know where to start. So, sometimes our goals look one way and they end up a different way, but it doesn't actually mean we failed in them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and since we kind of jumped to it, so let's stay on that thread for a minute. I'm curious about, how do you see golf as being a powerful networking and deal making space? Because we all know like the cliche, right? Like, oh, my boss is on the golf course, like he's he's taking a client out, or they're doing whatever, they're gonna tee off and they're gonna whatever. But I'm curious about, when you think about the deal making space as, a boardroom versus a Michelin star restaurant versus a golf course setting, like what is it about the golf course, or is there anything about the golf course that you think is particularly conducive to kind of massaging along or bringing that deal to a head?
I think possibly it started off as a really great excuse for businessmen to have a day out on the golf course. Like they started making these, we're going to do deals on the course. However, I do see the value behind it. So I think with golf that one of the big things about men going out on the course and making these deals is that it's a game of honor. And when you're out there, it's leisurely, you're outdoors. People just seem to be a little bit happier out there. So I think bringing people out to the golf course to do business deals became this way of like relaxing your client and, making it a little bit less formal, and it's worked. And salespeople, have said that some of their best deals have happened on a golf course rather than sitting at a table in a suit and tie and being a little bit more wrapped up and formal. With that said, I think that having women be more involved in the game of golf, they've missed out on the opportunity of one, just being uncomfortable and not knowing where to start. Like, I'm not very good. I don't know what to do. I don't want to go out there. And there's all these corporate events and, there's 144 people that can play in the tournament and you'll have 4 women signed up in the whole thing. So, my thought was, why can't more women just know that, like, you don't have to be really good. You have to have a few basics down and you can go out there and be part of these meetings, these events, and, not be waiting behind while, other people are taking that opportunity. So I think the golf course is a great place for work to be done.
So it almost sounds like you're suggesting that if you want to make power moves, it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of just a little game in you as far as, some basic skills, right?
I don't think it'll hurt. No,
Yeah.
It's, obviously growing up playing, and I don't nearly play very much at all anymore with kids and work and time. It's a time consuming sport, but, it is fun to be able to tee off in a group of men who are waiting for me to like not know how to hold the club and then, possibly be able to hit it farther than them and them kind of look back and I'm like, whoop, lucky shot.
Beginner's luck.
Beginner's luck. Yeah. A girlfriend of mine who we grew up playing against each other, but we lived kind of locally. We've been invited to corporate events where we'll sit on a hole and we're like the hecklers. And we act like we have no idea what we're doing. And then we'll hit tee shots in front of them. And, you get every reaction. You get the ones that are just laughing. They're so impressed. And then you get the few that are just not happy at all. So it's really fun. I do wish I could bring golf into everything a little bit with work. And there's more companies that are doing it. I mean, Chevron and Wells Fargo, and there's a lot of big companies that I've seen. They're getting their executive women and they're providing golf lessons for them and clinics just to get them more comfortable around the game so that they can be part of the corporate events and some of these meetings that we were just discussing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it really is kind of the sport of business. Like okay, sometimes they might do like a racquetball or whatever, but really it's golf. It's not like, oh, let's meet up and play some basketball. Like you don't really hear that, not in a business context anyway. In a social context, absolutely, but not in a business context.
even when I started, 17 years ago as the CEO's executive assistant, when she kind of fully understood my golf background, as soon as she was like talking to a potential new investor or shareholder or something, it's like a really fun thing was like, oh, you'll have to meet, our executive assistant, Michelle, or then, operations, and it kept going up. She used to be a scratch golfer, and it was like, and then it would be this conversation starter, and we'd be in big meetings, and she'd be like, as soon as she heard someone play golf, she'd be like, Michelle, enter in, like insert kids. It's like this easy conversation. It kind of surprises them when they see a girl that, had more of a background in it. So she definitely used it to her advantage too over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with what you've got. So you've worked across so many industries, Michelle. I mean, it's been entertainment, as we mentioned, at the very beginning of your career, it was with Maria Bello, the famous actress. You've worked in tech. You've done estate management, which is what you're currently doing. How do these worlds compare? And what are some of the maybe unexpected similarities or some of the differences? I mean, I think what's really interesting is just how much dexterity you've displayed in your career. And, I think that's somewhat uncommon, seeing someone that's done so many different types of industries and roles.
Yeah, I mean, Maria, I ended up actually meeting through CEO of Box Media about 14 years ago or so, and they were friends, and we ended up meeting, and then I worked with her overlapping a little bit with the role that I've been in the last 17 years. So Maria and I have worked off and on in different segments of time over the last 10, 12 years. She is incredible. She's a great person. I feel like she's always been kind of like, when things get hectic or she's got a lot of jobs going or different life changes, she's kind of made that phone call and been like, hey, I need some help just getting kind of everything back on track and a team back together. And I've been able to jump in and help. I think where that came from was the first time we worked together, 12, 13 years ago, is when someone who's more in that celebrity spotlight over the CEO, executive level, I think the difference is they're very used to having people come in and out of their lives, and they're looking for the freebies or the invites to the coolest party, or, the whatever comes along with some of that, fame of working with a celebrity. And when she has someone that joins the team, or anybody in that industry that isn't there for those reasons, and they were there to be a support staff and to keep their best interest in heart and actually shield them from the people that were there doing that and picking up on it, that bond becomes quick real fast, because it's sad that in that industry, how many people in support roles or in that, these celebrities that get working for them are not always there for the right reason. And I sometimes don't think it's even intentional. I think it's really easy to get wrapped up when you're just living in that world, and they're going to all these fancy parties and they're meeting all these people, and you have access to so many things that you normally wouldn't, that, the temptation of like where you could maybe push a little bit gets thrown at you more. And so when they find someone that never crosses the line, it's really easy to latch on and feel comfortable with. And so Maria and I built a relationship off of her kind of knowing that I respected her as an actress and loved her work and her as a person, but my main priority always remained as being her support and looking into her best interest, not mine or anyone around her.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which is the trust theme again.
Yes. Yeah. It really comes down to that. I think when, you've interviewed some of the most, so many amazing people in executive assistant roles and PA roles and estate roles, and it all kind of boils down to that trust factor. And even like, not starting something new for so long and now kind of diving into this idea of this new role in a new environment. It's, I kept telling the staff and the people during my multiple levels of interviews is that I don't want to come in and expect everyone to just respect me. I have to come in and earn their respect, and I have to let them begin to trust me because they've been here and they've got something that works. And whether it needs tweaks or some changes along the road, it's not for me to come in and steamroll or make them feel like what they've been doing hasn't been working or isn't working, because that's not the case. What they need is someone to come in and feel like they're here to support them and elevate whatever they're doing to be the best at their position and their role. And, I think if I can get that message across while starting a new role and in a new home and a state that I'm going to be managing, then I'll be successful because they'll trust me, and then I'll be allowed to trust them because they'll have let me in a little bit. And I do think that when people come in as like a manager or with the team working below them, that sometimes they want to reverse that. And that's, there's a wall up there then, and I don't want that. I want it to start open, and I want them to know that I'm here to work as a team.
Yeah. I mean, we could do a whole episode alone on just onboarding successfully and how to ingratiate yourself in an appropriate way. And you're right. I mean, there's a lot of sensitivities, and people are partial to typically what they've been doing. Most people aren't doing things in a certain way because they think it's a bad way of doing it. They're doing it like that because they think it's a good way of doing it, presumably, right? Or why else would they do it?
Or the way they were taught
or the way they were taught. I mean, most people want to do good things, and even if there's room for improvement in it, typically, like you said, steamrolling and is just not the way to get people to be inclined and to lean in. So there's definitely some finesse in how you approach a team, how you ingratiate yourself, how you take the time to massage those connections before you start to ask the questions and make the suggestions. But there's a real finesse to that. And you're actually giving me a really good idea, which is that we should definitely do an episode on this, because we see the reverse, right? We see what happens when people don't onboard successfully and they come in guns a-blazing, and they alienate,
And that, I think, it's easier to do that. You come in and you want to come in and you've got all these ideas, and then you're excited for the new role, and you want to show them like how great you are and that, you can do all this, but all that can come with time, because like you said, like they've got a process and a way things are working, and it's not that it's incorrect or wrong. And I need to be let in to then allow them to let me share my ideas where they'd actually be heard and possibly of some value. So it's been interesting. I mean, going back to the role, at Box Media, me being so far away, when we were onboarding people, we had an amazing onboarding process. And it was, we dedicated a lot of time to getting it right over the years, and we took a lot of pride in it, and the team did a really great job executing it when new people came on. And we ended up actually making me, being so far away, kind of the person of like resource, but also maybe the pushback. Like if we realized, like, because I wasn't there in person, so it wouldn't be as harsh if I had to push back from farther away, because, I wasn't sitting in the meeting next to them the next week where they're kind of like, oh, she didn't like my ideas. It wasn't that. Maybe I gave a little bit of feedback, but, that can always be tough when you're coming into an organization. So we kind of used it as the advantage that I wasn't there in person. So if there was a little bit of pushback about the way something was happening from someone new, they weren't feeling uncomfortable about it. And so this is an interesting reverse where I'm the new one, and I'm coming in, but remembering what it's like to be on the other side when new people are coming in, and just knowing that, like, I'm always had a wall up of just like, I've got to trust you first. I got to make sure that me putting in all this time and energy into your new role is going to be worth it. So I really am going to, come in with the mindset that I want everyone to welcome me in, and then allow me to kind of grow from there.
Yeah. And so what did lead you back to estate management after all these years? But I mean, I understand what you shared about it made sense for various organizational reasons to kind of take more of an advisory role with Box.
Yeah.
I get that. But what made you choose, of all of the different options available to you? I mean, you could have gone to tech, you could have gone to startup, but what made you decide that you wanted to apply yourself to estate management?
I went back and forth heavily between, PA, EA, estate management, and I kind of landed between the personal assistant side and the executive estate management side. And I ended up wanting to go more estate management because I really think I thrive with more of the personal relationship side. So the family aspect to me was kind of where I ended up putting all my focus in as I was exploring this idea of wanting to have that connection again with an actual principal and their family, and then growing it there. I love managing a team. So instead of just being a personal assistant to maybe one or two of the family members, or and being able to have that connection with a family, and then also having the team to work with, like at an estate, I think made the most sense, because I'm getting to bring in, you're still running, it's almost like a mini business. I mean, when you're working at an estate of a certain level, the home is no longer operated just as a home. It's a mini operation that's
It's a
going on
facility. Yeah,
it's
for sure.
it's like a museum. It's it's a little mini hotel. So it's like you have staff working in different departments and different things. So I'm still getting kind of that business thrive that I love, the operations side and chief of staff kind of capabilities that I get to bring over from Box. And then also I get that personal connection of it's not just a business. There's a family at the center.
You know what? I really like that. I've never heard it framed in that way, like that analogy, but I really like that. I'm going to use that because you're absolutely right. I mean, so you've got a museum, so you've got like the MoMA, you're running the MoMA. Mm-hmm. You're also running like a little mini Neiman Marcus because you've got like the whole like high-end gifting, la-di-da wardrobe situation going on. Then you're running a restaurant because you typically have chefs, catering, events, la-di-da-di-da. And then you've got and then wine and all of those types of things, right? And then and then you're running like an event planning situation because you've got that whole element. And then there's a gifting and philanthropy. So it's like, it truly is an org. And never mind, there's also like the actual facilities element, which is the operations of the home.
Yeah.
And then you've got the hotel concierge. Yeah. I mean, it's a really good analogy.
Yeah, I mean, there's the maintenance of the estate, and I mean, a lot of them will have their own concierge, their own, you have housekeeping, you have a creative team for the different seasons and all this stuff. So it really is its own operational business. But what I think draws me to it when I was over the last 6-8 months, contemplating this change, was I still get that business side, but I get to bring it back to where still the number one focus and the priority will always be a family being the center. Because even with all those things we just mentioned, at the end of the day, this is someone's home and family, and they come first, and everything else just runs around them. So I love the fact of merging those two pieces together.
Well, it sounds like you've definitely found a good fit.
For
all the interests that you have.
It's like this whirlwind of change, and making a change after so many years has not been easy. But I have these 3 amazing co-founders who have been nothing but supportive, and they're really excited for me, and I'm just really excited to watch them continue to grow. And I told them, the best thing that could ever happen to me is that I, wake up one day and see them just like blowing up and going, wow, I left that ship a little too early. That would be the best thing I could ever see in terms of me and what I wish for them over the next, upcoming season.
That's great. So I have a final question for you, Michelle, which is what we ask of everyone, all of our guests. So I'm sure you know what it is. But if you could support anyone in the world throughout time, history, you name it, who would you choose to support and why?
Oh gosh, I did try to think of this a little bit in advance, and it's like I had all these random thoughts in my head. So
you're not allowed to say Tiger Woods.
Well, Tiger Woods would be up there, but I actually don't know how exciting of a job that would be. I think he's pretty routine and structured on a day-to-day. I don't know how much he needs support from someone to telling him to go get to his appointments on time. But, John Daly would be someone I would not mind supporting for all. If he wanted an interesting job, he could probably throw you for a few loops. So if I was being more serious and John Daly wasn't on the table as someone who maybe needed a personal assistant for a while, I would love to support someone like maybe Dr. Mark Hyman. He's actually a friend of the CEO of Box Media, and they've known each other for many years. And I have gotten the privilege of meeting him once or twice many years ago. But he's this he's just a lovely man, but he's now a huge influence on social media through like his outlook on health and progressive treatments and remedies for both disease and chronic illnesses and all of these things. And he takes food and lifestyle as most of his healing treatments, but also still mixes in, both spheres of medicine, if you will. So I think supporting someone like that and watching them really truly make an impact on, we have so many health issues going on in our world and all these different things that keep popping up. But to see someone who's so focused on being part of the solution for that would be absolutely
He's
amazing.
Also a podcaster, is he not?
Yeah.
It's so funny. I was at my book club last night and we were talking and his name came up, and that's so funny. We literally just had a whole conversation about him.
How funny. I mean, he, like on Instagram or something, if you follow him, I mean, just even like his daily tips. And I think he's coming out with maybe even a show I saw or something where he's going to talk about using food as medicine and other things. And he's just like a really nice guy, seems so down to earth on all of his podcasts and shows that I just think it would be fascinating to be part of someone's life that was like kind of making those type of changes that could better, people all across the globe.
Yeah. I love that. And that is very much front and center for me right now, as far as like that whole kind of school of thought and influence and life pivots, things like that. I've been working pretty diligently on that. So yeah.
Interesting. Give him a look online. Yeah. He posts some really great stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you for that. Thanks for being here. This was a really nice, great conversation, Michelle. I really appreciate your openness. And I feel like you shared a lot of things that are real truisms for, actual guidance that people can incorporate in terms of how they think about how they partner and how they truly support, not just in terms of the tacticals of support, but like actually the foundations of support, like the trust, the confidence, being a confidant, having genuine, authentic intentions, things like that. Like, I think those are really apparent in how you do what you do. So I think those are really powerful reminders for our listeners today. And what an interesting life you've had. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds a little more interesting when said out loud and, a quick time period. But thank you so much, Jessica. It's been lovely getting to know you. You have an incredible team. And so I appreciate you guys having me today.
Thank you.
Reach is brought to you by Maven Recruiting Group, who specializes in placing executive assistants and support staff to the Bay Area's most prominent executives and companies. If you've enjoyed being part of our podcast community and are interested in becoming part of our candidate community, we're currently hiring for roles in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and Los Angeles. You can visit us at www.mavenrec.com to see some of the roles we're currently working on and to submit your resume.